My dad sold my late mom's wedding ring to buy his girlfriend a cruise. I bought it back from the pawn shop, restored it, and wore it on a chain to the family dinner where he planned to propose. I'm shaking just thinking back to that week, because it was the first time I realized my dad would sell anything if it got him what he wanted, even if that anything was the one piece of my mom I had left. I'm Emily, 27, female. My mom, Laura, died 3 years ago from ovarian cancer. She wasn't just my mom. She was my anchor, my best friend, my safe place in a world that's been, honestly, not all that safe since she's been gone. Her wedding ring wasn't flashy. It was a modest gold band with a sapphire center, worn smooth from decades on her finger. But it was hers. She used to spin it absent-mindedly when she was thinking, and I remember the little groove it left on her skin. She promised she'd leave it to me someday, so you'll always know where you came from. After she passed, I kept the ring in a small cedar box in my bedroom. I wasn't ready to wear it yet. It felt too raw. But I'd open the box on bad days, run my thumb over the engraving, Forever L+M, and breathe in the faint cedar scent. It was like having her near. My dad, Mark, was never great with grief. He remarried in under a year to a woman named Tammy, 43. Heavy perfume, fake tan, a personality that's basically Facebook marketplace drama in human form. She smiles with all teeth, no eyes. They'd been together for about 6 months when I noticed things in my room were moved. My jewelry box angled differently, the cedar box slightly ajar. I told myself I was paranoid. Until one day I opened the cedar box and it was empty. At first I tore my apartment apart. Maybe I'd moved it, maybe I'd put it somewhere safe and forgotten. But deep down, my stomach was already turning because I knew my dad had been over 2 weeks earlier just to drop off some boxes from the attic. And Tammy had been with him. When I called him, my voice was shaking so bad it sounded like static. "Dad, where's mom's ring?" A pause. Then, casually, "Oh, yeah, I pawned it. Tammy's birthday's coming up and I wanted to surprise her with a cruise. You've just had it sitting there, Em. Thought you'd want us to enjoy life." Enjoy life with my mother's wedding ring. I swear I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. "You sold it?" I asked. "It's just a ring," he said, annoyed now. "Your mom would want me to be happy." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back, but my hands were trembling so bad I almost dropped my phone. That night I didn't sleep. I found the pawn shop by calling every single one within 20 miles. Finally, one guy said, "Gold band? Sapphire center?" "Yeah, came in yesterday." It was still there, $620. I emptied my savings. The ring was scratched, dull, wrong, but it was back in my hands. I took it to a jeweler Mom loved. They polished it, repaired a tiny prong, made it hers again. I bought a delicate gold chain and wore it around my neck, tucked under my shirt, where it rested against my skin like a heartbeat. I didn't tell my dad. Not yet. Because I knew what he was planning. Tammy had been hinting all over Facebook about a life-changing night coming up, and I knew exactly where they'd be making that announcement. The annual family dinner. The one where my dad planned to propose. And I was going to be there, with my mom's ring gleaming against my chest. That dinner was supposed to be celebratory. Dad had been hyping it for weeks like he was hosting the Oscars. "Dress nice, Em," he said over the phone. "We're going to have a big announcement." His voice had that smug, rehearsed tone, like he was picturing himself as the star of a Hallmark movie instead of whatever this actually was. I didn't tell him I already knew about the proposal. Tammy had been practically live blogging her own engagement countdown, cryptic captions like, "Change is coming," and selfies with her nails freshly done just in case. The thing was, this wasn't just any family dinner. He was doing it at Grandma Ruth's, which meant every living relative on his side would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who still brought up the time I spilled gravy at Thanksgiving in 2007, and Grandma, who still wore black to holidays, out of respect for your mother. The kind of woman who'd call out a crooked hem and a crooked soul in the same breath. The night of, I dressed simple. Black blouse, jeans, boots, the chain with Mom's ring tucked neatly under the fabric, warm against my skin. I swear it pulsed every time I thought about what Dad had done. Like Mom herself was saying, "Don't you dare back down." When I walked into Grandma's dining room, it hit me. This was staged. The long table was set like a magazine spread. Wine glasses already full. The kids' table moved to the living room so everyone could be part of whatever Dad had planned. And there they were. Dad in a crisp white shirt, Tammy in a glittery blush pink dress that screamed prom queen runner-up. She was laughing too loud, touching his arm like they were in a rom-com. When she saw me, her smile got tight, the kind you give when you're bracing for impact. We all sat. Dad kept clinking his glass every time someone tried to talk, like he wanted to make sure he was the focus. Tammy's hand never left his arm. I could feel eyes flicking to me now and then, half curious, half waiting for me to screw something up. Dinner went on. I barely touched my plate. My stomach was in knots. Not just from anger, but anticipation. I knew what was coming. and I knew exactly when I'd make my move. Finally, Dad stood, cleared his throat, looked around the table like a politician surveying his loyal constituents. "I wanted to thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "It's been a rough few years since Laura passed." A few heads turned toward me here, but I've been lucky enough to find happiness again. Tammy's eyes were already glistening, her manicured hand at her throat. He reached into his pocket. "Tammy, you've brought joy back into my life." And that's when I reached up, slow, deliberate, and pulled Mom's ring out from under my blouse. It caught the chandelier light like it knew this was its moment. Conversation stopped. Chairs creaked. Tammy's face went pale as she stared at it. Dad froze mid-sentence, mid-reach, the velvet ring box still in his hand. "Funny thing," I said, my voice carrying way further than I expected. "This belonged to my mother. Dad pawned it for a cruise. I bought it back." You could have heard a fork drop. Grandma's eyes narrowed to slits. My cousin actually mouthed, "Holy shut!" Tammy's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Dad's ears went red. He looked like someone had just yanked his pants down in church. I didn't sit back down. I let the silence hang there. Let the weight of the words do their work. And I swear, in that moment, I felt Mom's hand on my shoulder. It was like someone hit pause on the whole room. No clinking glasses, no awkward coughs, just this hot, brittle silence pressing in from all sides. Dad's jaw tightened. "Emily," he said slowly, "the way people talk to cornered animals. That's not true?" I tilted my head. "Want me to show the pawn shop receipt? Or should I tell them how much it cost me to get it back?" Tammy shot him a look, sharp and panicked. She clearly hadn't expected this to be part of her big night. Grandma Ruth, God bless her iron backbone, leaned forward like she was about to referee a boxing match. "Mark," she said, "is that Laura's ring?" He opened his mouth, closed it, finally muttered, "It was just sitting in a box. She wasn't even wearing it." The air shifted. It wasn't just me anymore. Half the table had turned against him. My Aunt Linda whispered something to her husband, who shook his head. My cousin Brandon actually leaned back in his chair like he wanted the best view of the wreck. Tammy's voice was high, brittle. "We didn't think you'd mind, Emily. It's just a what?" I snapped. "A leftover from the wife who raised me? From the woman you replaced like she was a broken appliance?" My hands were shaking now, but I didn't care. I yanked the chain over my head, letting the ring swing in the light. "This is the only thing I had left of her, and he sold it. For you." That landed. Tammy's smile was gone. Her cheeks were blotchy red. Dad's face was stone, but his knuckles on the ring box were white. Grandma Ruth stood. She's 82, but when she rises, people shut up. "Mark," she said, voice like a hammer, "you will explain yourself right now." He tried to laugh it off. "Oh, for God's sake, you're all overreacting." That's when Brandon's wine glass tipped. No accident. And red splashed across the pristine white tablecloth, bleeding toward Tammy's lap. She squealed and jumped back, the chair clattering to the floor. "You've ruined my dress," she shrieked, grabbing a napkin. "Guess you'll need another cruise," Brandon muttered. Dad's composure cracked. "Enough. This is supposed to be a happy night and you—" He jabbed a finger at me. "You've turned it into a circus." I didn't back down. "No, Dad. You did that the moment you thought a week in the Bahamas was worth more than Mom's memory." Tammy stomped toward the kitchen, muttering about club soda. Dad followed, but not before giving me a look I hadn't seen since I was a kid in trouble. Pure, burning fury. The rest of the table buzzed like a kicked beehive. Aunt Linda squeezed my hand under the table. "Good for you," she whispered, but I knew it wasn't over. Dad wasn't the type to swallow humiliation quietly. He'd come back swinging, and not just with words, and I wasn't done either. He came back into the dining room like he was walking onto a battlefield, shoulders squared, jaw tight, Tammy trailing behind him with damp spots on her dress and eyes shiny from either tears or fury, maybe both. He didn't sit. He planted himself at the head of the table, palms flat, leaning forward like a bad cop in an interrogation scene. "You've embarrassed me in front of my family," he said. "Our family," Grandma Ruth corrected, but he ignored her. Tammy sniffled and stepped closer to him, like she was his co-captain in this little ambush. "You've been so hostile toward me since the day we met, Emily. I've tried so hard to be part of your life." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd my body didn't know what else to do. "You stole my mother's wedding ring." Her tone sharpened instantly. "It's not stealing when your father gives it to you." Grandma slammed her palm down, rattling silverware. "He gave you that ring?" Tammy froze. Dad stepped in, voice loud enough to cut through the growing whispers around the table. "It was mine to do with as I saw fit. She's making this into some sentimental drama." "Sentimental?" I cut in. "She wore it every day of my life until cancer took her. She wanted me to have it, Dad. And you sold it for a cruise so Tammy could get drunk on a deck chair." Tammy's cheeks flushed. "It wasn't just drinking. It was—" I yanked my phone from my pocket. "Want me to show everyone the pawn ticket? The jeweler's invoice?" I swiped to the photos. Clear as day. The receipt with the pawn shop's name, the description of the ring. I held it up for the table like it was Exhibit A in court. Murmurs spread. Uncle Rob actually muttered Jesus Christ under his breath. Dad's face was red now, and he was gripping the back of his chair so hard I half expected it to snap. Enough, he barked. If you can't respect me or Tammy, you can leave. I stood. Gladly, I looped the chain back over my neck, the ring falling against my collarbone. But I'm not leaving quietly. I looked directly at Grandma. You should know what kind of man you're about to toast tonight. Tammy gasped like I'd slapped her. You're trying to ruin our engagement. No, I said, stepping back from the table. You ruined it yourselves. I'm just holding up the mirror. And with that, I walked out of the dining room, out of Grandma's front door, into the cold night air. My heart was pounding, my hands were still shaking, but under all that, there was this deep, anchored calm. I had the ring. I had the truth out in the open. And something in me knew this wasn't the last round. Because people like my dad and Tammy, they don't retreat, they retaliate. And I was ready. Update 1. Alright, so, wow. I didn't expect my inbox to turn into this. I posted about what happened at that dinner, figuring maybe a few people would read it. Maybe I'd get some, you did the right thing reassurance. Instead, I woke up to hundreds of comments, a mix of, you're my hero, and please tell me you recorded it, and, my personal favorite, if it were me, I'd have put the ring in Tammy's wine glass and watched her choke. Don't tempt me, stranger on the internet. Some of y'all went hard. I've gotten suggestions ranging from hiring a skywriter to tell the neighborhood Mark sold his dead wife's wedding ring, to printing flyers and putting them on every car in his church parking lot. A few of you even offered to Venmo me money to get the pawn ticket framed. You're unhinged, and I love you for it. A lot of people asked if I was okay. Here's the truth. I was riding a high that night walking out of Grandma's house, but then my phone started blowing up. Missed calls from Dad. Then, texts from unknown numbers. Turns out Tammy gave my number to her friends so they could send me paragraphs about respecting my elders and letting go of the past. One even said, your mom would be ashamed. Yeah, I nearly threw my phone at the wall. Then came the Facebook posts. Tammy went full novella. Big public rant about being blindsided by bitterness and trying to build a blended family despite resistance. My cousin tagged me in it with 3 popcorn emojis. Comments were split between her friends telling her I was toxic and my relatives dragging her in the replies. Grandma Ruth's comment just said, I know the truth, and so do you, which, honestly, deserves to be embroidered on a pillow. And here's the kicker. Dad showed up at my apartment 2 days later. Didn't text first. Didn't knock like a normal person. Just banged on the door until my downstairs neighbor peeked out. I didn't open it. He shouted through the wood, you're making a fool of yourself. Give me the ring and I'll make this right. Make this right? By proposing with it anyway? Selling it again? Tossing it in the ocean for symbolism? That's when I realized something. I didn't just want to keep the ring. I wanted him to feel what he made me feel. Small, erased, stripped of something irreplaceable. And thanks to some of you in the comments, looking at you, Vengeful Violinist 92, I know exactly how to do it. It's going to be public. It's going to sting. And it's going to use his own special moment against him in a way he'll never see coming. Because if he wants a proposal story, he's about to get one. Just not the kind he can brag about. The idea clicked into place so perfectly it was almost scary. It wasn't about yelling at him again or sending angry texts or even getting him to apologize, which, let's be real, would never happen. It was about rewriting his story, turning his romantic proposal into a memory he'd never want to talk about. First, I needed intel. And who better than my cousin Brandon, the same one who accidentally dumped wine all over Tammy at the dinner. I shot him a text. You hear if Dad's rescheduling his big night? He replied within a minute. Yeah, they're doing it at the Valentine's fundraiser next weekend. Dad's giving some speech before the auction. Perfect. The Valentine's Gala wasn't just some dinner. It was the event of the year for our town's business and social crowd. Local paper coverage, photographers, people in floor-length gowns pretending they don't gossip for sport. If Dad was going to try again, this was his stage, and I was going to be part of it. I reached out to Marcy, a friend of mine from high school who now worked in the PR office for the charity hosting the gala. We weren't super close, but I knew she loved a little harmless chaos. I asked if she could get me on the volunteer list for the night, preferably in a role that put me near the microphone. She laughed. Girl, I've been following your Facebook since the ring story dropped. I'll make sure you're right where you need to be. Step 2. Presentation. I took Mom's ring off the chain and brought it back to the jeweler. This time, I had them polish it to a mirror shine and box it up in a velvet case, the kind you'd expect to see in a proposal, not a replica. The ring. By the time the night came, I was in a simple black evening dress, hair up, Mom's ring in that box tucked in my clutch. The venue was dripping with red and gold decorations, couples milling around with champagne flutes. My stomach was a knot of nerves and adrenaline, but I kept smiling and greeting guests as if I was just another volunteer. Halfway through the night, I spotted him, Dad in a dark suit, Tammy in a red gown with a slit so high, it looked like she was daring the fire marshal to say something. They were making the rounds, Tammy touching everyone's arm as she talked, Dad laughing too loud at his own jokes. When the auctioneer called Dad up to say a few words before the special surprise, I moved into position. I stood just off to the side of the small stage where the mic stand waited. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Dad started his speech, all about love and second chances and embracing the future. Tammy was glowing, already holding one manicured hand out like she was picturing the ring sliding onto it. That's when I stepped forward, smiling sweetly. "Before you continue, Dad," I said into the mic, "you forgot something." Every head turned. He froze, blinking at me like I'd just walked out of his nightmares. I held up the velvet box. "The ring," I said. "You know, the one you sold for a cruise? The one that belonged to your late wife?" Gasps. Actual gasps. I opened the box and the sapphire caught the stage lights like a flashbulb. "Since you clearly value it so much, I thought I'd bring it back for the occasion." "Oh, don't worry, I already bought it once. I wouldn't want you to have to pay for it again." Tammy's smile died so fast it was almost comical. Dad's face went a dangerous shade of red, and that's when the cameras started clicking. The clicks of the cameras were like gunfire. Short bursts, rapid, impossible to ignore. Somewhere in the back, I heard the local paper's photographer mutter, "Oh, this is going above the fold." Dad stepped toward me, his smile frozen and teeth clenched. "Emily," he hissed, voice low enough the mic didn't catch it, "stop this right now." But the room wasn't his anymore. The crowd had shifted, literally. People angled their bodies toward me, eyes bouncing between the box in my hands and his face. They weren't seeing the charming pillar of the community act anymore. They were seeing a man who'd just been called out in front of the county's social elite. I took a breath, steady and clear. "I just thought," I said, "since my mom can't be here, her ring could at least be part of this moment. You know, to remind us all where we came from before we traded in for the next shiny thing." A ripple of ooze rolled through the room like a wave. Tammy's hands curled into fists at her sides, nails digging into her clutch. Dad tried to grab the mic, but I stepped back, keeping my voice even. "Funny thing," I continued, "I had to buy it back from a pawn shop. I guess cruises aren't cheap." Now the murmurs weren't just whispers. They were sharp, cutting, and loud enough for him to hear. "Pawned his dead wife's ring? God, that's cold. Tammy must be proud." Tammy snapped first. "You're pathetic, Emily," she shouted, her voice cracking. "Always jealous. Always trying to ruin everything for your father." "Careful," I cut in, looking straight at her. "You don't want to get wine on this dress too." A few people laughed. Quiet, but loud enough. Dad finally wrenched the mic away. "I'm sorry for the interruption," he told the crowd, his tone forced light, like a man trying to convince a room full of people his house isn't on fire. "Let's move on." But the energy had shifted. The applause was weak. The auctioneer shuffled awkwardly before starting the bidding, and I slipped back into the crowd, tucking the box into my clutch again. By the time I left, I'd already seen people scrolling through photos of me holding the ring on their phones. One woman whispered to her friend, "That's Mark's daughter. She's the one from the dinner story." Word had spread. And later that night, as I sat in my apartment scrolling through the online chatter, it hit me. This wasn't just embarrassment. This was going to stick. Dad had wanted a proposal story he could tell forever. Now, he had one, just not the kind you frame. Update 2. I knew it was going to make waves. I did not know it was going to hit like a damn tsunami. By the next morning, I had 3 missed calls from Grandma Ruth, one from Brandon, and one from an unknown number that turned out to be a local reporter who just wanted to confirm the details of the ring situation before we run with it. Apparently, someone at the gala had live-tweeted the whole thing. Photos, quotes, the works. By midnight, it was all over the town's Facebook groups and spilling into wider circles. One post with the caption, "She brought her dead mom's ring to her dad's proposal," had almost 40,000 likes. Half the comments were people calling it the most poetic public execution they'd ever seen. The other half were people tagging friends like, "OMG, this is exactly what you do." Tammy, of course, went into PR overdrive. She posted some 5-paragraph sob story about how I ambushed them during a private sacred moment, which, sure babe, sacred in a rented ballroom with a microphone and a photographer. She ended it with, "We've decided to postpone the engagement until family wounds have healed," which just about killed me because I know Dad didn't sign off on that wording. Dad hasn't spoken to me directly. Instead, I've gotten a string of passive-aggressive texts. "Hope you're proud of yourself. Mom would be ashamed of your behavior. You've ruined any chance of this family being whole again." Funny how whole only seems to matter when his ego's on the line. Meanwhile, Grandma Ruth straight up called me laughing so hard she had to put the phone down. "Emily," she wheezed, "you should have seen Tammy's face. I haven't enjoyed an event that much since your cousin's wedding cake collapsed in '09. But the real kicker? The charity gala's own Facebook page posted a photo of me holding the ring, thanking me for reminding us all that some things are priceless. The comments under it are pure chaos. People debating the ethics of pawn shops, strangers dragging Tammy's dress, at least 3 locals volunteering to adopt me into their families. And because karma occasionally works on overtime, Dad's business page is getting hit with 1-star reviews from people who weren't even there. My favorite says, "Wouldn't trust him to value my property. Clearly doesn't value family heirlooms." So yeah, I'd say mission accomplished. He wanted a proposal story that people would talk about for years. Now he's got one that'll haunt him every time someone says the word ring. The week after the gala felt like walking through the aftermath of a tornado. Quiet in some places, absolute wreckage in others. I didn't see Dad or Tammy in person, but I didn't have to. The fallout had legs. Aunt Linda told me Tammy had taken a break from social media after getting roasted in the local moms group, where people were debating whether her cruise was worth stealing from the dead. Someone even made a meme of her holding a cocktail on a cruise ship with the caption, "Thanks, Laura." Dad, meanwhile, was apparently on a warpath. He called Brandon, ranting about how I'd humiliated him, disrespected the family, and made it impossible to go anywhere without whispers. Brandon, being the agent of chaos he is, told him flat out, "Maybe don't sell your dead wife's stuff next time." Dad hung up. At work, I kept my head down. The last thing I needed was to drag my job into this mess. But even there, the story trickled in. One of my coworkers saw the photos online and said, "Damn girl, you went for the jugular." I didn't deny it. Then came the letter, not an email, not a text, an actual letter in my mailbox, written in my dad's tight, slanted handwriting. It was 3 pages of self-pity and moral gymnastics. How I'd overreacted, how the ring was just a symbol, how Tammy had felt unwelcome from the start because of my attitude. The last paragraph was the kicker. "Until you can admit you were wrong and apologize to both of us, there's no place for you in this family." I read it twice. Then I set it on my kitchen counter, placed Mom's ring right on top of it, and took a photo. I sent the picture to Brandon with the caption, "Guess I'm an orphan now." He replied with 14 laughing emojis. The truth? It hurt. As much as I'd braced for this kind of severing, there's a part of you that always hopes your parent will wake up one day and see you, value you. That part of me got smaller after the pawn shop, smaller still after the dinner. And after the gala, I think it's gone. But I've got the ring. I've got Grandma Ruth, Brandon, Aunt Linda, and a whole internet's worth of strangers who made me laugh when I wanted to curl up and cry. And maybe most importantly, I've got the knowledge that the next time Dad tries to spin his little fairy tale about finding love after loss, there will always be someone in the room who remembers the night his daughter stood up and told the truth. And that's worth more than any cruise. It's been 2 months since the gala, and the dust has mostly settled. Though settled in my family just means the embers are still glowing, waiting for someone to stomp on them. Dad hasn't spoken to me. No calls, no texts. The letter sits in my junk drawer, unopened since that first read. Tammy's completely off Facebook, which my cousin swears is because she can't post anything without someone bringing up the ring incident. Apparently, she even skipped her own sister's bridal shower to avoid running into half the people from the gala. The best part? I heard through Grandma that they still aren't officially engaged. The proposal never happened that night, and every time Dad tries to bring it up again, Tammy shuts it down because she doesn't want another scene. He built his entire redemption arc around that moment, and now it's radioactive. The ring itself sits where it belongs, in my cedar box, polished and perfect. I still wear it on the chain some days, usually when I know I'll be around people who were there that night. It's become a little silent signal, a reminder that I don't have to swallow disrespect just because it's coming from family. And yeah, some relatives think I went too far. My Aunt Carol told me I should have handled it privately. I asked her if she meant like how Dad privately handled pawning my dead mom's ring, and she shut up pretty quick. Others have quietly reached out to say they wish they had my guts. One even admitted, "He's been like this my whole life, just not with something so obvious." The online attention has died down, but every once in a while someone will DM me a screenshot of my face on a meme or a TikTok recounting the dead mom's ring saga like it's urban legend. I never correct them. Let the story grow. Let it live in the dark corners of every banquet hall Dad ever sets foot in. Here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It doesn't fix what you lost. It doesn't make them apologize or suddenly become the person you needed, but it does shift something inside you. It reminds you that you can draw a line, stand your ground, and survive the fallout. I'll never get my mom back. I'll never get the version of Dad who might have protected her memory instead of selling it off for a vacation. But I got her ring. I got my voice back. And I got the satisfaction of knowing that for the rest of his life, whenever someone asks about his engagement, Dad will have to choose between telling the truth or choking on the lie. And either way, I win.